with his strong teeth, and every Christmas gets.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm thrilled to see the room is full, and it's even bigger than the room since it's open, so feel free to take a seat even if you're in the back. There's still a few seats left. So here today we are about to speak how can we leverage textile recycling to nonwovens, and what are the opportunities, what are maybe the bottlenecks, how do we see the market evolve? Just over a year ago, the European Commission released its textile strategy. You may be familiar with it. They want to address the environmental impacts of textiles and increase the recycling options. And I'm reading about 5.8 million tons of textiles are discarded every year in the EU, approximately 11 kilograms per person, 11 kilograms. And clothing comprises the largest share of EU textile consumption, 81%. It's mentioned in the textile strategy. Now, following up on that textile strategy, the EU institutions are revising the Waste Framework Directive, and they will propose harmonized, mandatory, extended producer responsibility measures for the collection and recycling of textiles. Countries such as France, Sweden are already in development of their own EPR provisions, so we will see that coming soon. As EDANA, and I'm representing EDANA, we believe that our opportunities to explore for the use of recycled contents from textiles to nonwovens. But which technologies are available readily? Which are in development? How will the market evolve? How creative should we be as an industry to use these materials? These are the questions that we will tackle during this panel discussion. I have asked each panelist to give a short presentation. It will be short, 10 to 15 minutes, and I will say when they need to stop. And after each round of presentations, we will have a panel discussion. So if you have questions, and we can make this interactive, yes, I will call upon you to raise questions. If you have questions, keep them for the panel discussion, and then we can go around with a microphone, and so you can ask your questions. You can raise your hand. Also, I know people are following online as well, so you can use this webcard app to raise your questions as well. Even if you're shy in the room, you can also use webcards. It's a tip. My name is Jill Stevens, and as the External Relations and Sustainability Director at EDANA, I have the pleasure to introduce a great lineup of speakers and panelists today. And I would like to start with Mark. You can get up. Mark joined Textiles in 2002 as technological advisor and innovation consultant for the Hygiene and Medical Laboratory. This laboratory offers highly specialized technological services, customized advice, measuring, testing, process innovation, and product development to the manufacturers of medical and hygiene-oriented textile products. This laboratory is specialized in the evaluation of cleanliness and barrier properties of fabrics, garments, and masks. So now you know the background, and Textiles also did an amazing, great study that I recommend all to read. But we will have a good presentation from Mark to introduce you to the topic. So without further ado, Mark, you have the floor. Please welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you also at EDANA for inviting me to speak here today. And all very nice to meet each other again at Index in Geneva. Like Gilles mentioned, Basically, I will introduce you to a study that was Textiles was asked to do by the European Commission. It's publicly available, and I will give you some feedback on the contents of that study. I think my presentation is a little bit long, so I will skip, or I will go through a few slides, especially at the start, which are fairly technical, fairly quickly, and then come to some major conclusions for discussion. First, a very short introduction. Textiles, you see it's a center of expertise for textiles in Belgium. So we are an association mainly focusing on research and technical testing and certification of textile and plastic materials. We have several laboratories. We have pilot platforms to do research. Of course, research and innovation close to industry, and we also are notified bodies, recognized, and so on for several product certification schemes. So this is the first important slide. This is the title and also the web link to this study. So it's a study on recycling technologies. It wants to improve the understanding of the existing technologies which are industrial applied or at research stage. It also provides a very detailed analysis of the economic and environmental effectiveness of those recycling technologies, a roadmap for these technologies under development, and also in order to support their industrial uptake. And finally, it also provides an analysis on relevant policy initiatives in order to tackle potential regulatory barriers and scale up of textile waste recycling activities in the EU, because that was the main focus of this study for the European Commission. So first few subjects lined up. So definition of recycling, what is the map of these technologies, a short overview of the three main technologies, what are the facilitating technologies which are still required, and what is the status of those technologies at the moment. So this is the definition. It's reprocessing of already used products, but not to include energy recovery. So that's a basic definition of the recycling. This is the map. It already gives an overview of all the available technologies and processes currently available or in development for textile recycling. I will go over them in more detail later in the next few slides. So the first one is mechanical recycling. It's currently at what they call technology readiness level. It gives a quotation actually of how close you are in a research development or in the development of a technology, a process, or a product towards bringing it to a market. So this one is already available, so that's what they say. It's at TRL 9. I will come back to that later on. So what is the outcome of this process? There is always a very strong relationship between input and output because it's purely a mechanical action you perform on the different types of textiles that you try to recycle. So the fiber type doesn't change, the chemical content also stays the same. But what happens is that the fibers, which textiles generally are mostly shorter, and because they get more or less damaged due to the process. So what are the advantages of mechanical recycling processes? They are possible on many different textile products. For some, it's the only way to start to recycle them at the moment anyway. So for example, wool, flax, acrylic, and so on. It's also possible because there are not that high investments in the process required to work with small quantities. Disadvantages, of course, is that in general the product becomes a lower quality than the articles you start from, the textiles you start from, or it often ends up in downcycling. It's also very difficult sometimes to be compliant with the current REACH regulations, because the articles that you are recycling date from or come from a date way before these regulations became this strict. Also colors, and this will be an issue, and that will remain an issue for many of the recycling processes. Then there is a combination of heat and mechanical recycling processes which you can perform on thermoplastic fibers. So it's basically first mechanically separating the fibers and then trying to, by heat, melt process the resulting fibers. Also here there are some requirements that you need to start with close to 100% of the same thermoplastic material, so mixes are difficult. Also any added chemicals make the process more complex. So for this application and thermomechanical recycling, production waste is preferable. So the advantages of this process is that it's cost effective, is also well known, and there are little emissions and water use. Disadvantage, like I stated, it's very sensitive to even low levels of contamination and the state of the polymer. So pure material is almost always needed. After the process, there is some degradation of the polymer or the fibers, and also here again, colors can make are an issue, and dark colors are preferred. Again, also the REACH regulation here plays an important part in some problems as well. Then there is the thermochemical recycling process, so that's combining heat and chemical dissolution processes. It actually degrades or reduces the polymers to their low molar mass components, so they can be used either for energy production, which is not really recycling, but can also be used as new raw materials. The advantage of thermochemical recycling is that the fibers and blends that cannot be recycled by any other technology generally can be by using this technology. So there is not only textile materials, so it can help to combine plastic waste with textile waste, for example, to get a size advantage. There is also a possible solution for contamination and damage of the textiles. Preferably also using pure uncontaminated feedstock. It results in pure uncontaminated feedstock, and in theory a whole range of desirable chemical products can be the result of this recycling process. Disadvantages, of course, there are, so high energy cost, high investment and operation cost makes this more difficult to start with. That's also why it's still in the development phase. And then there are the chemical recycling processes, which are still most of them are still in fair development phase. I will not go into detail. Like I mentioned before, the study is more than 200 pages, so you can find many details about each and every technology in that study again. So you can have polymer recycling of cotton via a pulping process, which is similar to the viscose process. There's monomer or oligomer recycling of polyamide or PET. And there are also technologies focusing on the recovery of cellulose and PET blends. The advantage here, the result are pure colorless polymers of good or even virgin-like quality. The technology is an option for degraded or contaminated polymers. And also here, a big advantage is that the REACH conformity is less of an issue, but still confirmation needed. It's probably or supposedly more expensive than mechanical or thermomechanical recycling. It also probably because a lot of these conclusions still need to be confirmed because most of these processes are still in development phase. So then also some developments regarding the facilitating technologies. So what is required to improve all the basic process which I mentioned before. So that's automated sorting or automated disintegration of the textile products. I have listed some of the examples and projects which are ongoing at the moment. So this is an overview of all the what they call the status of the technologies in the development phase at the moment. Those of you not familiar with the term TRL, it's easy to look up. Google will give you a very straight answer. So level 9 is the highest level and it's market ready. So everything which is not 9 needs some further development. And also you can see in the right column how many years from now the study which was performed in 2020 would still need to go to that famous TRL 9 level. So then come to my last slide. This is basically the most important one. It gives some pointers, some advice, some conclusions regarding how we can stimulate the progress of all these recycling technologies. So what is important to further develop is regarding the current input of recycled material, is like developing advanced sorting techniques, also optimize logistics, so to increase the quantities, for example. So examples of some projects or which are ongoing or which were finalized are also given. Then for current input, what we can do to improve the future input is, for example, add more or add at all any way of product traceability so that it's much easier to identify the type of material that you are actually going to recycle by using RFID, markers, product passports, and so on. Again, improving the disassembly and disintegration techniques. Also, elastan, the elastic fiber, is generally seen in certain, if it surpasses certain minimum quantities, as being a very difficult subject in recycling all these materials. And another thing is that we can, of course, already start from the design of the product to improve the recyclability of the articles. So that's also trying to generally implement eco-design principles. And then another important remark that conclusion that the study made was trying to align the needs and the long-term commitments. So if you have if you can secure a certain supply to recycle material, but at the same time also know that what you recycle or the recycled product will end up in a useful market, then this will help, of course, to make important investments to be made. And this can be done, for example, by what they call the offtake model. So this concludes my presentation. I hope I didn't pass the time. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Thanks for the presentation. On to the next one, Heidi. Heidi van den Hul is educated in textile engineering and management. She has chosen to work in different applications of the textile industry, fashion, bedding, interior, nonwovens as well. She started her career in production and quality management, followed by different commercial jobs in procurement, sales, marketing. You held different positions in the nonwovens industry. Global segment manager, hygiene and wipes at Jacob Holm, marketing manager EMEA at Lenzing, and also market manager at PGI. You founded your own company, Fabric Creation, in 2012, and she's currently working as a consultant and coach to many companies. So Heidi, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Yeah, so thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. We actually connected on this when I was presenting also at Co-Wipes. I actually presented at the time with a former colleague of mine who is now deputy director at a textiles recycling company. And I invited him at the time because I thought it was really good to join forces as we were looking for also at Co-Wipes. As Jill said, I started in the textiles industry when I graduated and then moved to nonwovens later on. And what I always noticed is that these industries are working very separately from each other. The shows are separately. There's not a lot of connection. But this transition from going from linear to circular working actually is inviting this, because textiles recycling is actually combining these worlds. And when you take a step back and look at textiles, what is the big difference between nonwovens and textiles? It is that there's most of the time in nonwovens not a yarn process needed. So actually textiles recycling, the end of it, actually already gives the fibers that are needed for nonwovens. So from a commercial point of view, this also makes it a very attractive proposition. So today I'm going to talk about a couple of circular pioneers in textiles, just as a kind of inspiration. I'm mostly discussing Dutch showcases. I'm from the Netherlands, so this is also the country and the developments that I know best. But I first would like to go still a step back in history, back in the past. When I had to choose my study, I actually was doubting to go either for history, studying history, or textiles. Today I'm joining these things together. Here you see a picture from the past. This is actually how the carded nonwoven technologies were inspired, because when you actually are making the yarns, there's a web in the middle of that process. And then somebody thought, why not bind this web? Nowadays we have many different ways of binding it, but actually this is also how these industries came together in the past. I'm still going to stay a bit in the past. You see here a picture of clothing, traditional clothing from the north in the Netherlands. This is part of my heritage. And actually, textiles in the past was a real cherished material. People, also farmers, used to make textiles during the winter time when they could not have the cows outside. Textiles was really a very cherished material, and you inherited even textiles from your relatives. And these traditional materials were really the best. This is you see even them skating. I did want to add the Dutch flavor today. So you really were happy to show where you were coming from, also the rich materials. Nowadays, unfortunately, and this is one of the problems also in textiles recycling, the quality of the materials has really downgraded. And especially the trend of fast fashion, nowadays even ultra fast fashion, has moved into that direction. So this is really making it even tougher for people in the textiles industry. But I think we should also go back a bit in cherishing again these materials. I chose textiles because I thought it was really wonderful what you could do with textiles. All these technologies, all these different ways of making beautiful materials. When I graduated, there was no fast fashion yet. There was not this high consumption. Nowadays, we double the consumption in 10 years. Every 10 years, there's double consumption. We cannot afford this. Our earth is not giving us these raw materials. There's just not enough. So we have to do something else. And this is why the circular economy model could work. However, this comes with some challenges. So, as I said, I'm going to talk about a couple of showcases just for inspiration, but I'm trying also to connect the textiles world with the nonwovens world while discussing these showcases. You probably have heard about these 3 R's being part of this closed loop strategy that we want. So reduce, reuse, and recycled. These 3 showcases all do bits of that. I'm going to start with Frankenhuis. This is actually the company that joined me at Co-Wipes. They are part of the De Boer group in the Netherlands. They get actually from other subsidiaries the sorted materials. Already by the previous speaker, it has been said that sorting is quite challenging. It's also labor intensive, so they're working also to get more scanning done, so to identify materials. But sorting is definitely quite a challenge. And in the Netherlands, there's a lot of companies who have some subsidies from the government to also have some people who either have, we call that a distance to employment, or who are trying to get back into employment. So they are actually helping out. But is this really then sustainable for the future? So actually we need technology for that. So that's one very important part. But anyway, these collected and sorted materials go to Frankenhuis. They're in the eastern part of the Netherlands, where also the textiles industry used to be located and is coming back, fortunately, a bit. They have a couple of lines and they're now expanding. One of the lines is making sure that the textiles is being recycled back in a way that it can be spun into yarns again, so then it goes into the textiles industry. Another line actually can sort the materials in a way and make it fine that it then can be used in especially needle punch nonwovens. But there's also a line which makes it into kind of pulp briquettes. And that actually moves to companies like Renewcell, who then can make it into dissolvent pulp, and then it moves to, for example, viscose production. So this is the relationship that we see. So there's definitely already connections with nonwovens. And actually, after we presented together at Co-Wipes, there has been already a trial started to make nonwoven waste, recycle it again, and to see if there are other applications for it. So it also really, you see that it helps to bring people together and to make this cooperation work. These companies also are inviting people in the nonwovens world, because there's a lot of fibers coming out of the textiles recycling which are very well suitable for nonwovens. And Andrits also asked me to make it clear, it's not downgrading, it is especially, as I said, because you don't need the yarn making process in between, so it's also commercially attractive. That's also why nonwovens is there. And there's a lot of technologies which fit well together. Maybe you also know from the early days already, we had blankets in the car. That always was coming from textiles recycling. This is not new. Actually, it's quite long already there, but we will have more and more due to this high consumption, but also in a way due to the fact that we are recycling more and more. We want to keep it in the loop. So the other showcase I wanted to talk about is this company. It's a 4-generation family-owned company. They are completely circular. That's why I show this picture. So they also have the clothing sorted, they recycle, and they also started spinning themselves. Then they also started weaving again, And so they now can make it completely in one company, a completely vertically set up company, making it into new implications again. Sometimes into nonwovens, like in cars, in blankets, all kinds of applications, but also in other, in clothing, in textile applications. They also link together with retail. There's a department store in the Netherlands, HEMA, where they have now cooperated together to have the clothes being recollected in the shop, and then they work together with this retailer to make new products out of it. So then the circular route is completely done. So I think also very inspiring. And they do it all in one house. They recycle every day 50,000 kg. So that's quite, I think, a number. The last showcase I want to show you is more at the end. This is more the disposal part, I would say, from clothing. Jill, you said it's 11 kg. I heard a number, maybe this is Dutch, 15 kg per consumer every year, which is discarded. But what this swap shop does is actually take back clothes and you get swaps instead. So you're not getting money, but you get swaps, so like points. And with these swaps, you can then choose new clothing yourself, so from other people who also have given back their clothes. So this is how it swaps. So in a way, going back to this picture that I've shown you from the history, where also clothing was swapped from generation to generation. So it's actually going back there. However, I do need to say that I read the other day that they do struggle to sell everything. Of course, there's sometimes also a reason why you discard the clothes, so it's not always perfect clothes. So what they now have decided is also to try to, with the clothes that they cannot swap, to also start some circular textile development. So of course, in order to also still close the loop again. So I think definitely 3 showcases for inspiration. And I've mentioned to you all the connections that they have with the nonwovens industry. Thank you already, Mark, for explaining textiles recycling. That makes my job a lot easier. But I just wanted to show this more going back to what is actually happening in the beginning, because also the textile recyclers do try, and this is also what Woolcat, for example, the example that I was referring to with a vertically integrated company, they do actually sort out clothes which can still be worn. So they make sure, so these are the rewearables. And often this goes to other countries as well, but they make sure, of course, not to recycle anything that can be worn again, because why would you do that? That's actually totally not environmental friendly. So if it could have another life, as it is, of course, this is what you want to do. The non-rewearables, that part is actually what goes into the real recycling, with, of course, some challenges. So Mark already explained there are different types of recycling out there. I was also lucky to attend a discussion in our parliament. This was about what they asked all kinds of companies what you could do to make the clothing industry more sustainable. Very interesting that they invited multiple companies, even retailers like C&A, H&M were part of that. Also Shein, but they only were there on paper, so to say. So, but that's very interesting because there were a lot of discussions what can be improved. And actually from that discussion, I also added, and I'm adding to what Mark was already saying, there are still some challenges out there. But first, before I go into these challenges, what also was striking in this conversation in our parliament is that the water quality and what is being flushed in the water also came up. Again, something which is a big topic in the nonwovens industry as well. And the discussion in this case was more about microplastics. I'm sure maybe you are aware that there's talk also in France, for example, to put a filter on your washing machine. I think it's in 2 years' time. It's mandatory. But they were also talking, can we actually collect fibers out of the water? Because we're actually flushing it or it goes somewhere. So this is actually also interesting. And then I thought, this is also what Nonwovens is talking about. And we have a lot of problems with the flushable wipes to explain it. But actually, if you could see it as something which is also still value, maybe you can work together. However, then you always come to, it needs to have a value. And this is always true in everything that we are discussing today. These examples that I'm referring to, as you see, as I was referring to, the labor force, for example, is a challenge. When it's in Europe, labor force is a challenge. Everything which is manual labor is a challenge. So luckily, this is still subsidized. However, how will it be in the future? So in order to make this all work, we need skill. And that's why these industries need to work together. So Mark already named a couple. So collection and sorting is definitely an issue. In the Netherlands, what was addressed in this parliament is, for example, that there's collection in one of our cities, but then the city says, I have a tender, who wants to bid on my textile waste? And then it could happen that in the eastern part, the textiles is collected, and then actually the recycling would be done in the north if you win the tender. That's not a good thing. So they were, of course, saying to the parliament, please change that. So these are some things where the legislation is not thinking ahead and is not actually accommodating the circular model. Available materials, that is definitely a problem if you want to use recycled materials and you want to plan ahead. And there's also from some materials a lot and from some materials not so much. Cotton, for example, is very much liked because you can do still a lot with the cotton. Blended fabrics is an issue, of course, to separate. Also, my co-speaker at the time, who is the textile recycler, told me about wear and tear. This is definitely, of course, also different. The way you wear your clothes, and some clothes are really worn out and some are not. So that's also something to consider. Chemicals was already mentioned by Mark. Cleaning and drying. So we also discussed wet wipes, of course. So if you want to put that back, of course, then you first need to dry. So that would even add extra energy, which you don't want. Export and import taxes. Sometimes these materials change from situation. So first it's the clothing, but then it becomes waste. This is also difficult in the tax regulation. The competitiveness in the chain. So to make it all work together so that it is all worthwhile. And the design for recycling, Mark already mentioned. From that discussion in our parliament, I also took away that actually I missed people from the nonwovens industry. So people were sitting there from collection, from sorting, from recycling, some retailers. But actually, I think it would have been worthwhile for nonwovens also to sit in there because we're all part of that chain. So I think that's my message. Let's join forces more. Let's work more together. And I think that would really benefit all parties. Thank you. Just in time.
Thanks a lot, Heidi, for that message. And thank you for incorporating the textiles and the nonwovens industry. That is really what we are speaking about today. I heard you say integrated company. Mark, you mentioned collaboration across the value chain. That is exactly what the next presentation will be about. You will not get one, and also not two, but three presenters for actually on the 3 or 4 slides. So you are fine. Also, before I introduce the next speakers, remember if you have questions, remember them or write them down or put them in the Swapcards app. So that we can use them during the panel discussion after this last presentation. So, Alexandre Buté, to introduce you, you have an academic degree in engineering and business. You have more than 20 years of experience in the textiles and non-woven markets. I will make it a bit shorter. You are today leading the Center of Competence for Recycling and Natural Fiber Activities at Andrit's Non-Woven Division. as a general manager of Andritz La Roche. And in parallel, you also lead the business development activities of Andritz Nonwoven globally. There's a first presenter. Marie Wattier is a circular project manager on or for Le Tissage de Charlieu, and you will hear all about it, what they do in a minute. Yeah, what should I say? You are experienced in circular business model design, huh, Marie? That's why you're on stage as well. You focus your career on enabling circular transition of the textile industry in France and throughout Europe. And then we also have Benoît Rambaud, who graduated as a textile engineer in France. You have been working more than 25 years in the design office, conception, research, and now as the technology director at Andritz La Roche. So, a warm welcome to these last three presenters.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's first, I would like to say it's nice to see so many people attracted by sustainability topics. When I started in Nonwovens more than 20 years ago, everybody was focusing on growth and productivity. I'm not even sure that half of you knew what circularity was meaning or recycling, but today it's nice to see so many people attracted by this. All right, we're going to talk about recycling as the other presenters did, but something which is funny about the title of our presentation is that we had a debate with Idana. Is it opportunities for Nonwoven due to textile recycling or thanks to textile recycling? Okay, so it's the $1 million question I cannot answer. What I can do is to speak about the 92 million tons of waste question. In Europe, 7 million tons, but it's a nice opportunity, we believe. Whether it's due or thanks, it's something big that we have to address. So we're going to tell you a bit what we are creating now. We are partnering, so we are 4 actors who are partnering to make something that will answer to one of the big motto of Idana for the index, explore new horizons with nonwovens, and we want to answer to it with recycled fibers. So we are 4 partners in the story we will tell you. First partner, Le Tissage de Charlieu, represented by Marie. Again, 20 years ago, when most of us were not even looking at circularity, the guys in Le Tissage de Charlieu, they were already using recycled fibers in the textile world. So we are having one of the textile guys joining us as Nonwoven guys, and who are already educating and having part of their DNA the recycling topics, the circularity topic. The second partner we have is Synergies TLC. They are not here today. But to present them, it's one of the major actors for collection and sorting of textiles in the western side of Europe. But today they do it manually. The third partner, who is also not here today, but it's the guys who are called Pelanc, ST, which is Pelanc for sorting technology. They are not well known in the textile world. They are not well known at all in the nonwovens world, but they are bringing a technology brick because they are specialists of automatic sorting machines for all the rest of textile, meaning plastic industry, packaging, everything around that. But they are missing, I would say, at least when we knocked at their door 2 years ago, they were missing the knowledge of the textile world. But they joined us, and we as Andritz are trying to make, let's say, a group of those people and creating a project. Our job at Andritz is to engineer and to manufacture lines. I think most of you may know Andritz for our machines in the nonwovens world. And we are all together willing to create a story to answer a topic which was always on the top of the list of Heidi and Mark. How can we resolve the issue of automatic sorting so that we can unlock the market of how to use recycled fibers in the nonwoven world? Okay, this was my speech. I tried to make it short, and I will now hand over to Benoît, who will maybe technically be better than me to explain you what we are doing.
Okay. I would like to start to welcoming you all here. The purpose of this short presentation is to introduce you the new line, the new pilot line near our facility. It's only 1 hour far from Lyon. And first of all, let me ask a question. What are the key factors for use the recycling fibers in nonwoven? I can think of several answers. The first will be the nature of the material. The second key factor could be the color of the fibers. I thought of the third one. The third one might be the cleanliness of the fiber. And the fourth is the traceability. Because it's important to know where your future fibers come from. So depending of your business, of your product, the order could be different, or you may have another important need. So to come to the pilot line, this installation, you can show on the presentation, meets these needs. It combines 3 functions by means of 3 configurations. To begin with the automatic sorting of clothes by material. We can sorting by cotton, polyester, even wool, polyamide, and even fiber mixes. It's possible to eliminate or to sort cotton with only 5% of elastane. And the sorting is by color too. Color could be white and not white. It could be this green carpet. But the problem for this carpet would be to have all clothes collecting of this color. It's not the technology. After that, the second configuration is to cut the clothes. And after, with the small part of fabrics, we can separate the main hard points, the main foreign point, like button, zip, and do again a new automatic sorting to purify the material. Then the third process is a pre-tearing process to obtain a textile, not fibers, but between shredded fabrics and recycled fibers, but without button, zip, metal part. So this material could be completed by shredding, by tearing, to have recycled fibers as a secondary raw materials. This new plant will be industrially proven. It will also be a tool to test all kind of batch at a rate of 1 ton per hour. And we have all necessary equipment, filtration, baling press, weighing, and we could elaborate the right configuration of your need. It should be operational in the second half of 23. So to sum up, this new material is suitable for non-woven application in all technology, airless, spineless, needle punch. Marie, if you want to continue.
Yeah. So the question now is, why do we do all this? For who and why? So the first answer would be, we do that for 3 kinds of industries. For the non-woven industry, which is mainly you. And we also do this for the textile industry, being spinning and weaving and then to clothing. And also for the composite parts industry, so the plastic industry mainly. And, well, as Benoit said, using this technology, we managed to transform the post-consumer textile, the non-wearable textiles, because this is what we do. We don't want to use wearables because, yeah, they need to be used as they are. And we Well, for a part of them, we sort them out by color and by blend, by nature, and we cut them so we can remove all the recycling disruptors, and we actually make them usable, and we give them an industrial grade usability for the nonwoven industry, for the textile industry, and for the plastic industry. Well, so now why the nonwovens? Because, well, as you know, you've been using post-industrial textile in the nonwovens, in insulations, for instance. And the thing is, the textile industry actually is looking to use these high-quality post-industrial materials because it provides the textile industry with large amounts of textile scraps, which you can divide by color, and you know exactly the blends and the composition of these materials. So what's going to happen in the coming years with the textile industry being very much interested in these resources is that the prices of these post-industrial textiles are going to go up. And what we do using post-consumer textile is that we want to prove it's actually viable, both environmentally and economically speaking, for you, for our company, Nouvelle Fibre Textile, and, well, for society in general. That's it for my part, and if you have any questions, you're most welcome.
Thanks a lot for all the presentations. And now we are on to a panel discussion. So think about your questions. I will ask you if you have questions also from the audience. But I have listed a few, and maybe we can start with you, Mark, because you provided an overview of the different technology developments in your presentation. And my basic understanding was currently we are recycling textiles that are coming from post-industrial, maybe workwear as well, but that's about it, right? How do you see sort of the market evolve? And would you see like the different technologies next to each other, or do you see one sticking out in the future?
Yeah, I don't think it will be up to one. It's the mix that is available or is becoming more and more available will help increase the possibilities for recycling of what they call the post-consumer waste, as we can call it. At the moment, it's indeed, and it was mentioned several times, is the sorting and the collection and getting not only the right quality of raw materials, but also the right amount. Because if you go for chemical recycling, for example, which is a very good option for a number of types of materials, or in this case, more oil-based polymers, for example, which you want to reuse as much as possible to reduce CO2 impact and so on. You want to increase the lifetime of any of these polymers used in any application. One of those is textiles, if it's non-woven or whatever. So, I mean, all the available technologies need a certain investment. So I think that's one of the major targets or questions that we need to address.
Yes. Okay. So do you see like we are now sort of testing out with the post-industrial and the workwear perhaps, and then in the future we can maybe also come to post-consumer as you're demonstrating. How would you see sort of that market evolve? I mentioned the extended producer responsibility schemes that are coming. Is this the trend you want to sort of be aware of or be upfront of this trend? Yeah.
Okay, I can answer. Yeah, there is something we did not mention, and that will also push everybody to use post-consumer, the EPR. Again, I mean, in France we have a specialty. It's creating new taxes. Huh? And so everybody has VAT. If you're not aware, it's a French invention. So everybody's paying between 10 and 20% more on everything, thanks to us. We also invented EPR, and and it's now spread over Europe. And there is something that has been invented a few months ago in France as well, is that we stimulate the economy, the textile economy, by giving €1 per kilo to the guys who put on the market textiles which have post-consumer content. €1 per kilo. Nothing more to say. I mean, how do you want to push the people to use it? Yep. Show them that economically it makes a lot of sense. So we see it like it will spread as well somewhere else, and automatically everybody will be attracted by that. I mean.
Okay, hold that thought, and then back to you, Heidi. You said you witnessed the discussion in the park. Was that brought up as well?
Yeah, actually, they were asking, unfortunately not this, but they were asking maybe that there could be mandatory 25% recycled content. That would also help to get more investors to also invest in this model. That makes it also more attractive. The €1 I didn't hear, so they were not listening to the French there. But no, definitely this is a struggle to make it work also commercially. So
yep.
that definitely is a good
It's
support.
a game changer,
Yeah.
And this requirement is already in place?
It is in place, yeah.
Do we have the capacities? I mean, you're developing a new line. I mean, it will be, at the end of the year, it will be commercially available, let's say, but are we far enough developed for this?
Well, so our capacity within 2 years, we're supposed to be able to sort through 20,000 kilograms of 20,000 tons
yeah.
of post-consumer clothing. So that's already a step forward. But yeah, there is a wide market for it, and we do need more investors and more companies doing this.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And something we may not have explained clearly, I don't know, but this line that we are building will be operating 2/3 of the time by Nouvelle Fibre. So it's a line that will operate at industrial scale. But 1/3 of the time, it is available for R&D, pilot trials, and to invite other actors. So if anybody is willing to make it somewhere else than in France, we can duplicate it somewhere. I mean, if we want to increase the capacity, we should not wait for Nouvelle Fibre Textile to expand and expand and expand. And it's a partnership which is openly offering the technology to other actors so that we do it everywhere in the world.
Yeah. So there is definitely the willingness to spread this out. So we are using textiles sorting. We will come to that later on. Some of the fibers can be used back in the textile industry. They can be spun again. Traditionally, then the shorter fibers, they can only be used for nonwovens, right? One of my questions was, is this downcycling, Mark? But you answered it as well.
Yes, no. No, yeah, I mean, what's in a word, it's if you create value again for this product, I don't think it's downcycling anything. So I mean, if it's an isolation panel in a car, why not? Then it's not downcycling for me.
Okay, but then we change your report, huh?
Yeah. I did it. I'm just the messenger here.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay, so it's not downcycling, but it's using valuable materials in nonwovens, right? What are the typical applications at the moment for? I don't know who wants to answer this.
For typical applications for recycled fibers in nonwovens.
No, it's building insulation, automotive inside the car.
Yep.
Mattress, furniture are the main application.
Yep.
But we are sure that it's important to replace this application coming from post-industrial by the same coming from post-consumer. And the material coming from post-industrial could be used for textile or non-woven.
Depending on the outcome, right?
Yes.
So if I understand well, now we have post-industrial, we have this workwear, you try to, the sorting is quite established, the feedstock you get is quite established, then you can recycle it into non-woven products. Now we will be sort of forced or incentivized to use post-consumer. Will that be having an impact on the applications for non-wovens? To the better, in the sense that more material will be available, but also maybe the quality will be less. So how do you see that evolution then?
We are already showcasing examples in the wipes industry. Why would you use virgin fiber today if you have recycled fibers available to make an industrial wipe? You go to any mechanical shop and so on, they use textile, collected textile, worn out and so on, to clean the parts and so on. We know that when we do it with non-wovens, I mean, there are many companies who make professional wipes, they make it technically more fit for the purpose. We can use recycled fibers. We even have an example, we have one of our customers in the textile world. He had an issue because he improved his process in making wiping material. He improved it so much that his customers complained that they could not see anymore that this was coming from recycled fibers. So we had to downgrade our process to show again to the customers that it's including recycled fibers. So there are some markets where you even want to see that it's coming from recycled fibers.
Okay, this is where the downcycling comes from.
So we have to downcycle, but for the market, yeah.
But that's probably similar to how it evolved in paper, isn't it? Because when we had recycled paper, it also had to look like recycled paper, and nowadays it's just white. So I think this is how it moves and will evolve the same way. Yeah.
But so
is
typically the
yeah.
wipes market is something that can welcome recycled fibers, no doubt.
Yeah. In our pre-discussion, you mentioned this as well, Heidi? Wipes using recycled content, it would be feasible.
Yeah, even at Co Wipes, I don't know if Eco Wipes is somewhere here. I didn't notice them, but they also said they expect that the future wipe will always have some recycled content in it. But the only challenge I do see there is hygiene. So I don't know exactly how in your route hygiene is being taken care of, because it depends on your application, how that is being managed, so to say.
Okay.
Quite.
So we have, in the very beginning, be immediately addressing it, just because I would say, as Android's non-woven, the hygiene portion of what we do is very high. So the applications that we were immediately thinking of were addressing this topic. And we said, no way, we don't find a technical solution, or we don't design a technical solution now. We wait and see how the market is reacting. Why? Because when you collect 1,000 tons of textile, half of it will go to the second-hand market. In this remaining, let's say, 500 portion, maybe 300 will go to applications like automotive, building insulation, and so on. No need to make it hygienic. Then you have only 20% remaining. In this 20%, maybe you will have 10% that will go to chemical recycling. Okay, now you come to 10% that you may have to treat. But what will happen with those? If they go to wipes, a major technology to make wipes today is spun lacing. I have visited probably 100 lines of spun lace because of our Android's business. Most of the guys, they sanitize in the dryer. They don't really sanitize before putting the fibers. Even if it's virgin fiber, it's been on stock for maybe 2 months in the harbor and so on.
True.
They sanitize because you dry it.
Yeah.
So before saying we need to immediately find a solution, we should do the complete process, see the applications, and see where there is a need to make a single drop. Also because one of the targets is that we lower the carbon footprint of all this value chain using recycled fiber. If we start to burn energy and so on just to sanitize when it's not useful, it's not the right topic. So we had the first impression we should address this topic. Now we are like, okay, we should wait and see who is taking those fibers and using it, and then see if we do it during collection, during sorting, during preparation of fiber, during non-woven processing, during converting. If I make a disinfecting wipe, what is the wet product I put in? Isn't it something which is killing bacteria? And so, I mean, it's not so obvious that we should do it upstream.
Yeah. Yeah, that's doing the smart way, let's say.
Yeah.
But then it's also back to your topic of hazardous substances that can be present in this. How do you see that evolving then?
Yeah, that will probably stay an issue as long as the source has the age where still these hazardous chemicals were used. You understand? So I mean, yes, that, and we are looking for in several projects also to how to remove those, especially those of high concern. There's many of those, more and more. Each several months, the list gets longer. So yes, that will probably remain an issue as long as this regulation for these type of materials will stay as it is now. So yeah.
Unless
Okay,
I'm wrong on the REACH regulation, isn't it like, I would say, unfortunately, it's not like the products are forbidden. It's just you cannot import those materials. So meaning if you do recycling local to local, which is the case of our nonwovens industry. I mean, we still produce a lot of nonwovens in Europe for Europe, in Asia for Asia, in the US for US. So if you collect and you put again the fibers on the same market, from a regulation point of view, there is nothing bad. Okay, it's bad chemicals, but from a regulation point of view, nothing is forbidding you to do it today.
Yeah, yeah. As long as the source for the recycling is complying with the requirements.
Local
That's
to
for
local.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But if it dates from way before, then of course you might have. But okay, that's something to.
We have the heritage, and that's the same
yeah,
as you
yeah,
said before. Like there's a transition process. So okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions from the audience? Do you have questions? You can also just raise your hand. No?
Yeah.
Hope you're not falling asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there in the back, there is a person with a question.
My question goes more to those of you who are in fashion than in recycling in general. With the global warming, isn't it the award winner, those going naked? So maybe we should give the award to people in New Guinea or in some Amazonian forest, but it's a real issue because with warming, we are supposed to change our clothing habits.
Thank you for that question. Heidi, you're with us to think creative and to think new ideas. Is that something you can answer?
Yes, I didn't fully hear it, but it's about the consumption part.
It's about the
Yeah,
consumption.
yeah.
Can we change the consumption, basically?
That's changing consumer behavior, and that's really tough. No. So I do think when we would focus more on value and if we teach more, which is, by the way, being done, I know that at least from the Netherlands, that we have a lot of games being developed in schools to really teach about how fashion is made. First of all, that's the first thing, that you know how much energy goes into it, how to make lovely clothing, but then also how to dispose. And luckily, there is already a trend, which is really a trend, to buy vintage clothes, to buy second-hand clothes. So there is more cherishing, but the fact that there are still, of course, brands out there who offer fashion for real low prices, that should stop. And there should be some legislation, I think, even about that, to make it really true pricing. And this is what a lot of people are discussing. Changing consumer behavior starts, I think, with educating young people. That's where it starts.
Education and awareness,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I see you nodding as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The thing is with post-consumer textile, we see that within 10 years, the portion of actually non-wearables will grow from 30% to 60%. So that's actually an issue we need to tackle as well. Like there is going to be more and more post-consumer clothing on the recycling market because the quality of the clothing that's being sold is less and less good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions from the... Oh, yeah, another question. Great.
Jochen Wirsching from Freudenberg. I have the term downcycling, I think, is quite like an idea killer or inspiration killer, I feel. Because when
But we already changed the report, right?
no, it's not about you, but this is how I feel in business. When we do, when we create, take a yarn which is maybe composed out of polyester and cotton or a textile, like 60-40%, and no elastane, and then you do mechanical recycling. Of course, you shorten the fibers, and you still have the mix, and you might have some colorants in it. So whenever you then try to do something with it, make an absorption felt or something which is maybe only one time more usable, someone stands up and says, this is downcycling. I would dream of having a full yarn again, yeah, which is not possible. And that is, of course, quite frustrating. And I don't find a solution for that, really. I mean, we are here in our Nonwovens bubble, but if we talk to people out there, they consider it downcycling and don't see it as a vision. I don't know if you can follow me. So
we should be more proud of the non-woven applications.
Yeah, I think
right?
when you just said once there is more regulatory pressure, like 25% mandatory recycled content or €1 extra per kilogram, then this will certainly fly. But at the moment, if you put 1 kilogram of recycled material with polyester and viscose on the market, the value is 0. I think it's 0. Mm-hmm. There's, am I wrong? Maybe I'm going too far. It's too late in the afternoon. So there is not so much value for this material unless if there is regulatory pressure coming. So therefore, maybe France is easing it. Go ahead with your local regulation and Europe will follow. Thank you.
We're trying.
Thank you for the challenging question or comment. I'm not entirely sure. But there's a reaction from someone from the audience as well, so behind you. And then we can have someone from the panel also interact in the discussion.
Yes, Nora Yester from APG, so automotive industry. So we are doing since years what you are talking about, using cotton shoddy, using polyester recycled fibers in our products without any issue, to be very honest. And I completely agree with him because like what we have to change, and maybe this has to be done with political issues, is giving a value to the material. And it doesn't matter if this material is a PET yarn or if it's a PET fiber, it's a PET. So if it was like gold or money, anybody would throw it away. But it's just a wipe, so put it away. And I think this is the big issue that we are having, that, and especially for non-woven, I think is a product that is not seen in most of the applications. So it's there, but you don't even know that it's there and why it's there. And this is something that we have to change, so maybe be more visible also to the end customer who does not know why we need all these materials.
Thank you for this. Alexander, you want to react. How can we be more visible?
I don't know how we can be more visible, but maybe we should explain also to the industry that when we use recycled fibers in nonwovens, actually we use a large portion. I mean, I'm sure in your material you have almost 100% of the material sometimes that can come from shoddy, so it's 100% recycled. When you look at the textile-to-textile, the graph, yeah, okay, even when you have chemical recycling, which normally brings virgin-like fibers, I think today, okay, not giving any name of someone who makes viscose, but we all know him. Even his own fibers have like 30 or 40% of recycled content, and the rest is coming from virgin material. So in nonwovens, we do much better in reusing and in circularity. So we don't downgrade, in my opinion. I mean, we upcycle because we use most of the recycled material, whereas you can still not do it even with chemical recycling today for textile applications. So yeah, maybe we need a Dana to advocate and to explain to everybody that nonwovens are a high value for recycling and not downcycling, for sure. So it's a question for you now, Jill.
Oh, yeah. Luckily, I get to ask the questions here today. Mark, did you want to react as well? No? You don't feel like
Yeah,
reacting?
okay, but yeah, the report has issued these recommendations to the European Commission, so I think they hopefully they have all read in very good detail the report, and I invite all of you again to do the same. It's a very nice report, and it states all these recommendations as well. Yeah.
And are really all the politics aware that we have 7 million tons of waste in Europe, of textile waste, and we make 3 million tons of nonwovens? It's a significant weight in the textile industry, I would say, to consider that nonwovens is not only downcycling, or we are all the poor guys working in this industry, stupidly, but we represent almost 50% of the volume which is available on the market, so not so bad.
Not too bad, not too bad. And I remember from this discussion also, we need to be proud of the applications we have currently, because I was asking questions about what are the next applications. It's also what we discussed before. But let's be proud of the applications we have, and let's be more open towards it. Now, I do want to also ask a bit more about the sorting, because that is also a bit the holy grail in the recycling, right? From the industrial, post-industrial textiles to the post-consumer. How to bridge that gap? That's the automated sorting. Can you tell a bit more about it? To the extent possible, that we have a better understanding of where we are now, and do you see it further evolving? What are sort of the biggest hurdles, the biggest opportunities? Can you elaborate a bit more? Benoit, everyone is looking at you.
Trop vite.
It's a secret.
It's a secret. Don't expose your secrets.
Yeah.
I don't know how to elaborate
To be more
on
specific,
that. To be
without
more specific, but
disclosing too much information.
Okay, what do you see as the biggest hurdle in further developing this? I mean, you wouldn't say we are perfect nowadays. This is a pilot, you will be testing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see sort of future development still possible.
So because we're starting, this is really a pilot line. Even though it's already industrial grade, we do process a large quantity of clothing. It's still in the research and development process. So we are working with our partners and clients to see what's most useful for them. So if we are to sort by colors, like how precise we need the components to be, how precise we need the color to be, and the scope and the variety, yes, of applications will depend on our clients upstream and downstream. So it's why it's really important for us to be so close by with Androids, because we can benefit from all the research that has been done there as well.
Okay, yeah, great. And then in our pre-discussion, you said, in the end, the textiles coming from consumers, it's a difficult fraction because you have everything, right? All these different pieces, even shoes, and so do you see there the need for pre-collection or pre-sorting by the consumers?
Yeah, it's like I explained, it's a little bit simpler. That's my personal view, to be honest. It's in plastics we already sort ourselves by doing that at home. So why not do that the same for the clothing or any textiles, materials? Because now also mattresses and all the curtains and everything else can come into play as well. But that's strictly speaking still considered purely waste. So that's also some, or carpets, for example. There's also a big volume which is out there. So I think there also the regulators could take a step and maybe make aware to people that they can already upfront, like cotton. Okay, I mean, the labels are there, so it's fairly easy to distinguish natural fibers from polymers or whatever, so that you already do some or try anyway to do some pre-screening, because the automized sorting is possible. There are techniques out there to analyze very quickly what is passing through on a running
Line. Yeah.
line. So if that and that is distorted now because the variation is too high. So that's apart from color, of course, you can also look into the composition pre-sorting. Yes, sure.
One of the hurdles as well is that the guys who are today acting in automatic sorting, like our partner Pelanc, they are not educated to textile.
Yeah.
I mean, they sort plastics, and I think everybody, when you have to do the manual sorting first, you know when a plastic bottle is here and when I don't know, a newspaper goes there. We all recognize it. But to pre-sort,
yeah.
Who knows if this is polyester or cotton, if this inside is polyester or cotton, if the inside of this is also not something different with polyamide and so on. So, okay, the pre-sorting, you cannot educate the people. And then the guys who are making the machines today, they didn't even think about it today. That, yeah, it's textile. The crazy designers of textile, they make all kinds of things with buttons and mix of different materials and so on, which is why also we cannot use the techniques, and it's why we don't want to speak too much about it, of classic, let's say, garbage sorting, because we need to be able also to separate those clothes to make sure that in the end we don't take this pant and we say, okay, it's 100% cotton. No. The pockets are polyester usually. So if you say it's 100% cotton, actually it's 90-10. But the sticker will not tell you that. Huh? The machine will detect cotton.
Yeah.
So we have to do something else to make sure we really sort and purify correctly.
So
and
there's a
what
limit
we are
to what
working
we
on.
can ask the consumer to do. The awareness raising is important, but there's a limit to what they can sort out, especially, as you say, designers, even with an eco-modulation, perhaps they will still, and you're designing textiles as well, so
Yeah.
you still want to have that freedom to design nice clothes and nice other textiles. Okay, any other question from the audience? Yes, please.
Who? Okay.
Yes, EPR, is it the Holy Grail? Who is in charge of the collecting? I know there's sorting technology coming. It's not perfect. I think we still need a human being there because it's not a pure material. I agree with a lot of these points. But do you think the operational and the financial, what is the balance between these two in terms of collecting a waste stream or a third sort of sector collecting for resale? These are things that we're battling with every day in Finland.
Yeah. Okay. We are not involved in collection because, first of all, the EU said that it's the responsibility of each country to organize it. So whether you do it on a public way or private way, if you incentivize or not, we are so far away from being able to push to change that we are not active in collection. It's difficult to answer your question, I would say.
We could answer for France because this is where we are. And the thing with EPR is that it subsidizes the collection and the economic model of the collecting companies, such as Synergy, our partner, is that they resell all the wearables, what we call the crème, and that makes interesting, some profit. Actually, that even the balance, the commercial balance. With this, we hope and we expect our model to, let's say, to cooperate with this, and we don't want to take value away from these guys. We want to be an addition to this, so we can actually work together to find streams that are profitable for them too. But yes, this is something that needs to be tackled on European level as well.
But I will say 2 or 3 years ago, when our partner Synergy TLC came to see us, hundreds, I would say. I mean, afterwards, we found out that they were also working with le tissage de Charlieu, but it's a long story. But they came to see us for the purpose of saying our business model will not last forever, because it's more than 90% of their revenue which is coming from reselling. And they came to see us to say, and Benoit was the first guy to meet those. I heard about Nonwovens. Can you tell me what it is? Because I think this can bring value to something which is decreasing on my business model. He says, I have value out of less than 10% of everything I'm handling, and I have 90%, I do nothing with it. I believe I could do something if you tell me more what nonwovens are. It's the primary usage that they were thinking about, and this is why they knocked at our door, actually, initially, not for the textile purpose.
And then we said, well, what do you need textiles do?
This is great. This is great to end the conversation. It's all about nonwovens and also a bit about textiles. Thanks a lot. Give them a warm applause. Thanks a lot for our speakers. Thank you.